There's a sentence no football federation should ever have to say in the middle of a World Cup. And this past Friday, Iran said it anyway. We're the most oppressed team in this tournament. That's not a fan on Twitter. That's not some random pundit fishing for a headline. That's Amir Galanoy, the head coach of Iran's national team, talking about his squad's experience at the 2026 World Cup in terms no coach has ever had to use at a tournament before. And in the days since he said it, Iran's football federation did something almost no national federation does in the middle of a World Cup. They filed a formal complaint against FIFA, the organization running the very tournament their players spent years qualifying for. So today, we're breaking down exactly what happened, why it happened, where FIFA actually stands in all of this, and what it tells us about a World Cup that keeps making headlines off the pitch just as much as on it. Let's get into it. Here's what actually triggered this. And once you hear the details, you'll understand why this is genuinely unprecedented in World Cup history. According to Iranian sports officials, U.S. authorities have placed a restrictive entry window on the Iranian national team. The squad is only allowed to enter the country 24 hours before kickoff, and they have to leave the same day the match ends. 24 hours. That's the entire window Iran's players get to be on American soil before playing on the biggest stage in their sport. Now compare that to every other team at this World Cup. Standard prep for an international match, let alone a World Cup fixture, means arriving 2 to 3 days early. Time to recover from a flight. Time to train on the actual match pitch. Time to adjust to the time zone, the climate, the local conditions. That's not a luxury. That's the baseline. That's what nearly every federation on Earth builds its entire travel plan around. Iran doesn't get that baseline. Because of the visa and travel restrictions between Iran and the United States, the federation made a decision that sounds almost impossible to logistically operate. They base their entire World Cup camp in Mexico, not the U.S., even though their group stage matches are in Los Angeles and Seattle. Think about that for a second. A team competing in the United States is living and training across an international border for the entire tournament. Every single match means the whole squad, the coaching staff, the medical team, the support staff, crossing from Mexico into the U.S., playing the game, and in many cases heading right back across that same border almost immediately after the final whistle. There is no equivalent situation anywhere else in this World Cup. Every other qualified nation gets to set up a normal base near their host cities and prepare the way international football has always assumed teams would prepare. Iran is operating under a completely different rulebook, not because of anything to do with football, because of the broader diplomatic relationship between their country and the host nation. Here's where it stops being just an inconvenience and becomes a real competitive grievance. According to the Federation's own statement, this disruption directly affected their performance in their opening match, a 2-2 draw against New Zealand. Galanoy didn't dance around it. He said the disruption prejudiced Iran in that match. He explained that under the original plan, his team needed to arrive in the host city 2 full days before each fixture to reach what he called optimal technical and physical condition, then return to their base the day after. That plan simply wasn't possible under the current restrictions. A coach who has spent his entire career building preparation routines around exactly the kind of timeline just watched his team get denied the ability to follow it on the biggest stage his profession has to offer. So the Iranian Federation responded the only way left available to them. They announced they're filing a formal complaint with FIFA. Their statement was carefully worded, but the message was unmistakable. They said the restrictions are inconsistent with the principles of providing equal conditions for participating teams, and warned the situation could affect their preparation for the rest of the tournament. Equal conditions for participating teams. That phrase sits at the absolute center of what a World Cup is supposed to guarantee every nation that qualifies for it. Not identical conditions. No 2 countries share identical resources, travel distances, or football infrastructure, but comparable enough that the result on the pitch is decided by football, not by logistics imposed from outside the sport entirely. Iran's argument is that a 24-hour entry window, forced cross-border logistics, and erect preparation schedule go far beyond the normal variation different nations experience at a World Cup. This isn't a team complaining about a long flight or an unfamiliar climate. This is a federation arguing, on the record, that the basic structural conditions of their participation have been altered in a way that actually changes match outcomes. And here's the part that turns this from one upset federation into something much bigger. Iran's situation isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a pattern of access and entry problems that have defined this tournament's opening week in ways nobody fully expected when the hosting rights were handed out. There's already been a case of a FIFA-appointed match official being denied entry into the United States entirely, despite holding official tournament credentials issued directly by FIFA itself. There have been reports of supporters from multiple qualified nations getting denied travel visas, even with valid, purchased match tickets in hand. And separately, Iran's federation says its official ticket allocation was withdrawn in the days before their opening match, meaning Iranian fans who held legitimate, federation-issued tickets simply couldn't use them. Put it all together, and Iran's complaint isn't a one-off grievance from one frustrated federation. It's the most visible, most institutionally significant version yet of a pattern that's been building since before the tournament even started. A pattern that keeps circling back to the same question. Who actually gets full access to this World Cup, and on what terms? So how does FIFA fit into all of this? Because Iran's complaint isn't aimed at the US.
Government. It's aimed at FIFA. The organization that owns this tournament sets the competitive rules, awards hosting rights, and is supposed to guarantee fairness across every host nation involved. As of Friday, neither FIFA nor the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has publicly responded to the Federation's complaint. That silence matters. It puts FIFA in a position it's now found itself in more than once during this tournament's opening days, caught directly between the sovereign immigration authority of a host nation and the competitive obligations it owes to every team that spent years qualifying to be here. This is genuinely new territory. Previous World Cups have had travel headaches, political tension, logistical nightmares. None of that is new to this competition. But a multi-country hosting format, where a team can be forced to base its entire camp in one nation while playing matches across the border in another, creates exactly the scenario Iran is living through right now. A scenario that simply could not exist when a World Cup was staged entirely inside one country's borders, which is every World Cup before this one. Set the politics aside for a second and just think about it from a pure competition standpoint. Everyone in football understands how much preparation time matters at this level. The gap between arriving with several days to settle in, train on the actual pitch, and adjust to the climate, versus arriving the day before, playing immediately, and leaving that same night. That gap can be the difference between a team performing at its absolute peak and a team just trying to survive 90 minutes. Iran's coaching staff clearly believes that gap is real and that it cost them points. And they said so publicly on the record, attributing lost results in their opener directly to circumstances completely outside the team's control. It's worth being careful here, because this distinction matters. FIFA hasn't issued any public response confirming or denying the specifics of Iran's complaint. The exact legal basis for the restriction, whether it's tied to a specific security designation, an existing visa policy, or some other administrative classification, hasn't been fully detailed publicly by either side. What is confirmed? The Federation's own official statement, the head coach's public comments, and the simple, verifiable fact that Iran's entire World Cup camp is based in Mexico, not the United States, where their matches are actually being played. Iran has 2 more group stage matches left. The Federation's stated hope is that FIFA reviews the situation and addresses their concerns before the tournament moves any further toward the knockout rounds. So where does this actually go from here? A few realistic paths. If FIFA could try to intervene directly with U.S. authorities to push for some kind of adjusted arrangement for the rest of Iran's group stage, though that requires a level of diplomatic coordination that's well outside football's usual lane, and something FIFA has rarely had to attempt at this scale. FIFA could acknowledge a real competitive disadvantage exists, while concluding it has no actual authority to change a sovereign nation's immigration procedures, leaving Iran to play out the rest of the tournament under the exact same conditions. Or, maybe most likely, given how this tournament has gone so far, this just continues without any formal resolution at all, becoming one of several fairness controversies that quietly end up defining this tournament's legacy once it's over. None of those outcomes are locked in. And it's worth remembering FIFA's president has already responded to other access controversies at this same tournament by telling people to, in his own words, chill and relax. A response that did absolutely nothing to calm things down when it was applied to that match official who got denied entry entirely. Whether that same energy gets applied to a formal complaint backed by an entire national football federation, that remains very much to be seen. Whatever FIFA decides, this story stopped being about logistics a while ago. Every team that survives qualification, the years of grinding, the matches won, and the ones that hurt to lose, the moment a World Cup spot is finally locked in, does it with one basic assumption. Once you actually arrive at the tournament, the competition will be fair. Not identical conditions for everyone. That's never realistic, but reasonably comparable ones. Iran is now arguing, formally and on the record, that this basic guarantee hasn't been honored for them. And they've put that argument in writing directly to the one organization whose entire job is to answer it. For the players, this adds a layer most footballers never have to deal with at a World Cup. Crossing an international border before and after every match, living out of a camp that isn't even in the country they're competing in, all while carrying the normal pressure of representing your country on the biggest stage in the sport. Plus, the extra weight of knowing your own preparation has been compromised by something completely outside your control. And for the fans, the ones holding legitimate tickets that quietly disappeared, the ones who just wanted to watch their national team compete on equal footing, this is its own kind of heartbreak. Nothing to do with the score. Everything to do with whether the tournament they waited for years for actually treated their team fairly from day one. Should FIFA step in directly when a host nation's immigration policy creates a real, measurable competitive disadvantage for a team that legitimately qualified? Or is this simply outside football's jurisdiction? However unfair it feels to the players living through it, drop your take in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to keep following how this plays out, hit subscribe. We're covering this honestly as it continues to unfold. This story is still developing. And as always, football never stays quiet for long.